ore te whānau.
Kia ora, Madam Chair.
Just love my trying to put me around nice. No mā whare mai ki tēnei hui o te whakakinui aroa. Trust, so we'll just start. I just want to say from the outset, or from the onset, as you can see, there's no beautiful Joanna to the left or right of us, or the middle of us. Apologies from Joanna. Her video, she actually did a video for us and we're not able to play it. I know, and I know that she was concentrating really hard because we had a number of discussions this morning. But what we will do is add the video to the clippage when we take it on to and put it up on our website. But from her, apologies. She lives in Tamaki in Auckland.
Tamaki COVID.
Yes, yes. And she doesn't have COVID. But her and her whānau made the decision to not come in case just for the safety of our whānau. And I think those are some of the hard decisions we're having to make as a kāhui and as a trust. And so thank her so much that she couldn't, and her brilliant work is obviously going to reflect today. She pulls everything to us for us, but she just really apologised that she couldn't be here. She did a couple of video clips, but I'm sure me and Bob can do that. Can sort of add into it. So I'm going to ask Papa Bill if you can open our for the kante.
Te hei mori ora. Piki mai, kake mai, nau mai. Aroa nui te o koutou, ki te o koutou tina, o koutou kanoi, ki taku tina, ki taku kanoi. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi te o koutou. Pai tonu te rā, o pai tonu te hui. Nō reira, te timata tātou mo tēnei kare. I roto te matua te tamo me te wairua ta kai mai te wāpaka hui tono mātou, i roto tēnei whare o tāu. Nō reira aroa nui kia whakapaingia te haeringa mai o tātou i rungu huarai, ka tae ana mātou ki tēnei marae o Iwitea. Nō reira, ho mai kia mātou ngā kupu kōrero mo tō rangatia o tēnei hui. Engari, ngā mea māuritanga i roto tātou hui, i roto te hoipero, i roto tātou kāinga, i roto ngā marae maha, me piki te ore kia tātou katoa. I roto te matu o te tama me te wairua tapu. Āmen. Āmen. Haere tō.
So we wanted to come back and bring our whānau back to our values. This is obviously Joanna's part. Just so we can remind ourselves what where we're heading to and why we want to instill these in our mahi that we do and in our hui that we run and just pretty much everything able. So, should we tag team each on one of these?
No.
Okay. So, whanaungatanga, inspire courageous leadership aligned with our hapu and continue to strengthen belonging. Tikanga, presence to uphold tikanga and kawa on our marae and in our everyday lives. So I can bring my glasses. New glasses. Waruatanga, encourage and nurture the connection of spiritual and physical well-being and the beliefs of our tapu. Manaakitanga, to achieve integrity through caring for ourselves and our manuhiri. Kaitiakitanga, rejuvenate and protect our taiao for the benefit of our hapu and our future generations. Do you want to read our statement?
Yeah, so that using those that tikanga there drove what we wanted to achieve overall, which is to be courageous together, driven by our tikanga and kawa, to achieve marae sustainability, empowered by spiritual and physical well-being, to strengthen social development whilst acknowledging the integrity of our environment and economy to build a prosperous future. So there's a few different statements in there which point towards what our po are basically. It is around people, it is around the taiao, and it is around our tikanga and Māori words. Which to capture that in a phrase, it's hui huia nā kia kia puawai. Which means that by coming together, we will be empowered and prosperous. So that's what our vision is.
So at the front was the chairperson's report. What I'm just going to debrief on that stuff is inside of the mahi that we've done since our AGM around our delegation of PO. So in order for us to do some structured work on it, we actually divided it between the three of us, and each PO we've been working on it so we could bring back to deliberate at our Zoom hui that we have every week, and then so we can bring something towards our AGM. DSPs, deferred selection process. This is going to be mentioned a lot more throughout our throughout today's presentation. I just wanted to just put some points on in my report around how much we've been working towards and what has been quite a substantial amount of work that we've had during the year. So the DSP that we've been working on is our only DSP, which is Mangapuiki block, and we've been doing that since last year. We've actually we were initiating from the first onset to our other Kāhui, and just the continuous work that we have. And I did mention the thank you to the Iwitea whānau, and both Bob and Perry and Joanna, because a lot of work has been put into that place and continues to be put into the space. Inside our trustee update, so both Bob and Joanna finally got to go to the IID training, which is what, Bob?
Institute of Directors, so it was basically governance training. There's a bit more to it. Governance, financial and strategy planning was what was covered in that training, so it was great for us. We actually did it with two other Kāhui, with Rakai Parker and with and also with Rongamai Wahine. So, it gave us an insight into, what the other Kāhui were doing and what some of their challenges was, and they got to see what ours were as well. So as well as picking up useful information, we also got to share a lot of information between our Kāhui. Nau mai hara mai e te whānau, na mihi kia koutou. Kua tai mai.
Kāhui Collective. So
just a question,
yes?
on Kāhui Collective that you got up there. I know it's all a lot of reporting and whatnot, but is this Kāhui liaising with other Kāhui?
That's correct.
Are you, say, talking to other Kāhui what they're doing, and can we do the same, or can we do it differently? I mean, it's also, Kāhui Collective finishing, let's go home now, but certainly there must be some guts to that Kāhui Collective, and that we're talking to other Kāhui and they're doing things, and we want to do it the same or do it differently. At the moment you're saying, Kāhui Collective, on to COVID-19 now, update.
No, so those are just bullet points, Uncle, for me to talk to. But thank you for pointing out, yes, Kāhui Collective.
How many meetings have you, that's why I want to ask the question, how many meetings have you had with other Kāhui? If you've got a Kāhui Collective.
Yep.
Or is it all just bloody waffle?
Yep.
No. So as Kāhui coming together to discuss it, because we all realise that we all share common, a lot of common goals. What we want to do within our Kāhui is what other Kāhui want to do as well. So there were 3 initial meetings around the Kāhui Collective, but it is fair to say that it's gone somewhat into hibernation. Trying to get not only input but buy-in from everyone in terms of what we want to do hasn't been a simple task. But at least at those 3 meetings we could see that what we were doing, what we as a Kāhui wanted to do, some of the key things that we were looking at, for around our Marae, for around Taiao, they're shared between all Kāhui. All Kāhui want to do that. So there's also been discussions around, if all Kāhui want to do that, what does that, does that mean that we've got a whānau to tātou? That instead of every Kāhui pursuing these things, we should be doing it at that tātou level. so that, you know, Kāhui aren't having to go out and do their own thing. But, you know, I will point out that with the Kāhui collective, it sort of ran out of steam or ran out of engagement, and we've not been back there again.
Yeah, what I was sort of leading to was that on the 27th of July 2020, we met with WNAR and discussed a coastal environment collective. But today it's just a waffle. We must meet, we must do this, we must do that.
No, we have met.
But there's no 28th of April we met with another Kāhui to talk about forward strategy. You know, I mean, it's also well to sit around for 12 months and come up here and just give us a few pictures. But there must be something within our Kāhui or within our trustees that a liaison at least, or we met with Taro to explore the possibilities of Kaumātua Flats. And then we can get into Puri. Where's their Kaumātua Flats, Puri? You know, that's it, you know, that's where I want to go. Mm-hmm. You know, and then suddenly we've got a COVID lockdown, and the only one that come to my door with a bag of lollies and a bag of apples is Conan and Executive. But do we have a ongoing strategy for you know, for our kids' education, or is there a plan you know, that you're going to introduce some kind of scholarship?
Yeah.
But nothing but IOD training. We're still in training 3 years later. Kāhui, we're still. That's where I want to be seeing what progress are we making as a Kāhui. And it would seem that we're not. So I'm not saying, you know, none of us have ever done this before. Mm-hmm. I realise that. But there must be certainly something that, I was speaking to Rāwhai Parker and they want to start an initiative about this and about that.
So I can actually say that, no, we talk all the time to our Kāhui, whether it's in the DSP space, whether it's in a hui during the week, but it's not specific dates because it's ongoing communication. So we're building a relationship with each Kāhui to ensure that we are on the same pathway. So we may not mention dates, we may not mention in depth, but we definitely know what we are touching on. So if we went back to our strategic pose and inside the mahi in there, that's what we're trying to stick through to in line. So when we come back to you in our AGM, and you stick at us again because we haven't got the guts of that, then farewell. But
Naomi, I wonder if Walter's alluding to the fact that we haven't heard from you. So
I would agree with that.
Yeah, we haven't heard from you for like, how many months? 3 months, and because of COVID, 6 months, maybe 8 months. The thing is, before this all set up, we used to hui with the people. And a lot of that's not happening now. I'm just wondering if you're alluding to that. Is that, am I right? Yeah.
There's no meeting minutes. You've had 3 meetings.
They've had heaps
and
of meetings.
And you've come here and I understand that you do need to sort of summarise and talk to us. But even if it has putted out, it's, I think, something that the Kāhui would like to discuss on how do we kick it back into here. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I think it's because yous are not on the ground. We can't see yous on the ground enough, like we used to. In the back of the days, I know yous are hooing 3-4 times a week, but the thing is, it's not filtering down to the people on the ground. That's one.
Meeting minutes of those 3 meetings would have been helpful, even if it's just put on the website and you send out the 100 million emails that I get every day and just say, you know, Cream, we had this meeting with that Kāhui collective and this is our meeting minutes, and then an assessment from you guys of saying, well, it's putted out because of blah blah blah, but and that gives me the opportunity that when I turn up to this meeting, I can then give you an informed decision of how we can actually, do we think this is a good idea to have a collective? Of course. So how do we as the Kāhui, as the people, move that? Because you see, we're not only just in, some of us aren't just in these 3 marae, there are others that are in other marae, and they can actually act as that voice as well, because that's the nature of tātou. And I think it is an opportunity. We need more. Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I think that's missing.
Good
Is that element.
Good feedback.
No.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely good feedback. Regards to our not being visual, it has been quite clear around some of the stuff in regards to our kānui kids kānui. So we've tried to send out pānui as much as we can via our emails. And as we tracked on our website, because we have got a website, it hasn't been used or actually viewed as much as what we want it to be, so we can utilise it more.
And that's where I think it'll help if you fellas are more out there on the ground talking to us.
Send us an email.
So if it's definitely there, we can put down the fact of on tracking on a monthly basis in regards to where we are.
It's a good idea.
And so that could be, well, we can take off this from Uncle's kōrero and your South Cousins.
Yeah, because if we come here and we're talking about, it's a normal everyday thing to have an expectation of meeting minutes. We shouldn't be discussing that at the meeting, we should be making decisions. But we're having to talk about basic administrative stuff. So we are supporting you in that, but also a reminder, if you want us to actually to participate fully, and we want to participate, you need to give us the data so that you're not forever having to backtrack. And we don't want to come here and attack you. We don't want to tell you that you're not doing your job, and it may come across as that. Believe me, that's not the case. But we're hungry for the knowledge that you have so that we can make informed choices. And therefore, when you're going out there and you're representing the Kāhui, we can say, hey, no, bro, that's our representative, you leave him alone. And we can support you in that way, but we can't do that when we don't know that you actually had the 3 meetings. I had no idea. It would be helpful for us so that we can support you 3, because it's not an easy job. And Dad's quite correct. We've never done this before. As Karanunu, as Wairoa, this is just, we're in this great big swimming pool. Actually, we're in Tangaroa, and we're swimming, I don't know where. It's a good thing, but then it's an unknown thing. So that would be helpful, and you'll get more hits on your website. One of the things that I learnt with websites is that you've got to let people know that it exists and that it's actually got something new on it. Because I have checked it a few times and nothing new's happened, so I don't go back. And that's lazy of me. I would take that responsibility, but unfortunately it's human nature. See, I check tātou because I know they have stuff going on there. Lucky. But it would be nice if that we could do that too. Yeah.
Kia ora, ngā cousin.
And I guess that should go for tātou as well, with the tātou rep, filtering it down to use, and it should come straight out to us. That's what I'm thinking anyway, something like that, monthly, whatever it used to be, not quarterly or whatever, or once a year. Monthly would be good.
Ka pai.
I agree with the speakers, and I think that the whakahe should be called in once a month to give you ideas of what they want to do.
True.
You're going to these other ones, and they're coming back, and you're coming back a collective idea, hopefully, for tātou. But you're missing out on the whakahe of the vicinity of our marae. And that is, you take it for a papakainga, for that belongs in the marae talks. And those sort of things. Housing is marae talks. Who's the land? How can we do it? And those sort of things. And I think if you call that, you'll get those, as Brian was saying. You'll get it, and then you'll have your take the whakahe view of ours, whakaki nui arua. Then you can go to your collectives and say, this is what our collective, what they spoke to us, this is what they want, what are your feelings? Even though we've made our feelings known. Papa, thank you.
Just on that, Uncle, we do have our Kāhui kaumātua representative, and he's got a few thoughts on that as well, around talking to the Pākeke, not only within our Kāhui itself, but around the rohe. So I believe Uncle will be getting up to just to inform us of what's been going on there a bit later on in the presentation.
Yeah, just to report on the Kāhui kaumātua, And Tato Tato, through their manager, have called together the kaumātua that we elected for each kāhui. And we've met twice. And first and foremost, we had to decide how are we going to be worked in the future. I'm giving you a report of the actual meetings. And we just haven't quite decided, but we really felt that we needed to be an entity of our own as kaumātua within Tato Tato. So we wanted to elect a chairperson, a deputy chairperson, a secretary if necessary, but all the administration of the Kāhui kaumātua would be done by Tato Tato's administration. So all the hui and calling of hui and all of that, we've put it to Tato Tato, and they may have met to agree to that. And then also we had some concerns amongst the 7 of us that we were being kaumātua committee, and some of our members are saying, what is kaumātua? And is kaumātua appropriate? And we've sort of had a feeling that pakeke may be more appropriate than kaumātua. We've yet to put that to Tato Tato. And we've had a second meeting to put together a few policy matters that we wanted, and that no trustee from Tato Tato can occupy a seat on kaumātua. That is sacrosanct. The trustees cannot come onto kaumātua, even though they may have kaumātua status. So, and then the voting rights within, and we were prepared to open the meetings of the Kāhui kaumātua to everyone. And so, and then we were even suggesting that we take our meeting to Marae, rather than just have it there at the Tato Tato office. So we're working through all of this stuff. Like I said before, we haven't done this before. And Tato Tato, certainly are going to get our thoughts on the matter. And once we've established that, then we're prepared to go to Iwitea, to Whakaki, wherever, Kihi to have our kaumātua meeting, so the people can then tell kaumātua how rata whakao. What are they thinking? Rather than sit in an office over there and draw a meeting fee and then go home. But those are our thoughts for the kaumātua committee. Then there was some suggestion that I was the kaumātua for Whaki Nui Arua, and I said, no, I'm the elected kaumātua. I mean, within our collective, we got 90-year-olds. I'm only 80, I'm only a boy. So, there's Uncle Bill here. If he want to cut across, he can pull rank on me any time. And that's quite a pai. I'm only the elected mouthpiece to go forward. But any time, our 90-year-olds, and Pat's 98, if they wanted to have an input, hey, help yourself. So, try to understand the position of kaumātua. You elect a representative, but that's all it is. Just a representative. Any time at all, our older ones can pull rank and say, well, nikāku whakao. So all these things that came up in our meeting. So we're working towards a kaumātua committee that can be effective. And then we were prepared to then come together with, all those kaumātua represent all the Kāhui. So then the kaumātua committee is free to go to Rangiahua, to go to Maya. The kaumātua committee will become an entity in its own right. And Tato Tato cannot order us around like bloody runaway. We will give our report to Tato Tato, and these are the things we find out from each Kāhui. I think it's an ambitious plan, but I think it's achievable. So that's where we're working with Kāhui and the other Kāhuis too. Kia ora, Madam Chair.
Kia ora koutou.
I think that
That's only in 2 meetings. You've had 10 months.
I think that I wouldn't mind moving a motion from the floor that we as a Kāhui in principle support the formation of a kaumātua committee and support the idea of its autonomy. Now I know I'm his daughter and I recognise that could be seen that there's a thing there, but and he has discussed this with me and I knew he was coming to talk about this. And I thought about it as a Kāhui, how do we support our Pākeke and kaumātua in their committee? And maybe as a Kāhui we can actually be one of the first Kāhui that speak up and have in our meeting minutes that we support in principle the autonomy of the Pākeke / kaumātua committee, because that hasn't been done that I'm aware of. I wonder if I could put that on the floor for people to discuss.
So it's my understanding that it is already set up. We have put that in motion. So about a year ago, with this Kaumātua Council set up.
Through tātou.
Yeah. But the elections happened at Kāhui level, and they're up there. That's where this umwhara is now at.
Yeah. So
it's already there.
Just through the chair, that's correct. So it's already
In motion.
It's already, but I guess what Uncle's talking about is that they've met twice since when we first started.
Yeah.
But I think the motion is actually quite a good one, because on the basis of what Uncle's been talking about and the way that they're wanting to move forward, which is about shaping that up in terms of the terms of reference that ultimately goes back to tātou, is a good motion. Because what we're saying here, which will be the first of the Kāhui, will be saying in principle and in terms of the direction that the kaumātua or Pākeke are heading in, that's what we support, which supports the terms of reference, which supports its transmission back to tātou.
At this point in time too, Madam Chair, as the elected kaumātua from this Kāhui, I don't know what my position is with you 3 trustees. You've never invited me to a meeting. You've never said, take this to the Kāhui committee.
Yeah.
I'm a nobody. I don't know what you fellows are doing or what you're thinking.
All don't.
Oh, shut up, Walter Wilson. You're only the elected member. And I'm trying to get the remuneration for Kāhui, for kaumātua Kāhui, from tātou. They haven't said yay or nay yet. So maybe you need to pay me as Kāhui member. I don't know. So no one's spoken to me.
No, we should have had that.
Chair, I can clarify that. So it's within tātou's deed for tātou to pay the Pākeke.
That's right. But this discussion needs to be taking place here.
I was just saving some money here. Tātou.
You're getting mean with the checkbook, that fella.
He is mean.
You always was.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. As you may remember, I was the inaugural chairman of the Kaumātua Council. How it works is that currently the seven kaumātua representatives for each Kāhui are there to advise tātou. That's solely how the tātou trustee works, is there to advise tātou when they ask for advice. Uncle Blighty and the Kaumātua Council as it exists now is thinking of something wider and something more beautiful and something more inclusive, and that's where he's coming from at the moment.
Yeah.
And sorry, we have the opportunity to support him with it.
So
Am I invited to these meetings?
You're actually not a part of them unless they ask you to.
Yeah.
You're part of tātou.
Well, you've elected me to fill in this Kāhui kaumātua's rep.
So
No, not tātou's rep. I'm the rep for Whakinui
on tātou's committee.
No, I'm for Whakinui I go there as Whakinui not as tātou. I don't want nothing to do with them.
That's why
I only want them to pay my remuneration. Oh.
That's why your suggestion is a really good one, because it brings everything in.
Well, how come my trustees don't invite me to their meeting? But never mind. But we haven't done this before.
Yeah.
No, we haven't.
that's
So
true.
Alright,
put it
so
on my
we need
uncle.
to.
And while we're on that,
Yeah.
and while we're on that note, what about the validators? What's happening with those? 'Cause
Well, can we go back to the principle of the motion
The
that...
motion,
Yes.
because I just need a
Yeah.
seconder.
Yeah, because you need a
Yeah.
seconder for
So
the
what
motion.
Corrine put to the floor was, that was up for discussion, that we support in principle the autonomy of the kaumātua Roniera.
Kāhui.
So do I have a seconder for that, and then we'll get back into any additional discussion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Kia ora, Bob.
Rita.
Rita did.
Kia ora, Bob.
Kia ora, Rita.
Is there any more discussion before we, any other
Not
thing
on
that
the
people want to
kaumātua
say
one,
before we put that to the vote?
Kāhui. Can we put it to the vote?
So those in favour
Favour?
to support in principle the autonomy of the Kaumātua Council?
Alright.
Aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Kumana.
Carry. Kumana.
I have a second motion, since Gaz brought it up, that, that our elected kaumātua actually participate in your trustee meetings, so that if we're wanting them, or something like that, amend it, because he's got a point. You've elected him, and then you put him in the dark. And so how can he represent what it is that your kōrero at the Pākehā Council when he doesn't know what's being said? It's illogical, you know, and I recognise that. The only reason I'm doing it as a motion is I want it to follow our meeting protocols, and so that when we do go to look on the meeting minutes on our web page, they can see where this come up. Because just watching a video of the discussion, it's really long, a video, meeting minutes are really quick. But if we have that motion in place where it's quite clear, or even if we start to have the motion in place that we start to discuss or develop the roles and responsibilities of not only trustees, but kaumātua council, maybe it's that, I don't know. Because at the moment, we're just floating, and like Dad said, he doesn't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah. So I think that just as that, you know, we need to engage our kaumātua representative within our trustee discussions. So
Yeah, he was elected by the people for the people, and as you guys were elected by the people for the people, we need you to talk to him. Yeah, because within that Pākehā Council, it is amazing the expertise that sits around that council, and also the vigour of which they want to participate, even because of even their age. They still have that vigour for our kids, for ourselves. And I do think that as a kāhui that we do need to ensure that we engage with those people that we elect into office in a meaningful way, and this is just saying that that hasn't happened in this particular case. Because it was November last year, and we're in what, September now? It's 9 months, 10 months. It's a long time to not engage with someone that you've elected, and it is a shame.
Yeah, I think one of our points, and it was raised back with Nigel around the process that Uncle had come into the space. So it was a request from Tātou that we get that across the table at the time that we did. As your trustees from our AGM to now, we're still working on the fundamentals. We've actually got a lot of our functions down and our policies and processes and stuff like that. So we have been doing a lot of chunk to ensure that when we do move or go into spaces that we actually have ourselves supported. And it's no good taking on a kaupapa when we don't have the support that we needed in the Pākehā sense of the paper.
I think just a kōrero with someone that you elected is a logical move.
Yes, no, I agree.
And that's what my kōrero is about, that it is illogical for you to elect someone as a kaumātua or a representative and not talk to them for 10 months. It's illogical. And I know he's my dad, But when it comes to work, I'm actually quite clear. I'm a professional, that's what I do. And I think it's illogical. And they've had 2 meetings where they've actually come out with some amazing stuff. And so that's why I'm saying Dad has a point.
Yes.
You have not spoken to him, and shame shame on us that we're not doing that. But they are not dialect kaumātua. We cannot treat them that way. And that's what's coming across. It may not be what you mean, but 10 months is a long time. And am I growling you? A little bit. Because I know who's on that committee and I know their background. Education, you know, all sorts of things that we've got on there. And they want to make an actual contribution. They're not into paperwork. They're all doers. So it would be good. And I find that what you're saying to me just comes across as an excuse because it's 10 months of you know where he lives and you never spoke to him, and he's got a point. But you guys aren't the only ones. I know that in the other Kāhui it may well be the same. So it is something that's really important. I think we can't just talk and I'll make an excuse. Shame on us for not engaging our kaumātua. We did not elect him to be a dialect kaumātua. The man has a lot of expertise. Before he goes, we need to grab that. Before our other Pākehā go, we need to grab that. They have more than just wisdom. They have expertise and experience that I know I don't have. So I was growling a little bit.
Yeah, no, we take it on board.
What's it?
Can we move on, Madam Chair?
Can we
Get bogged down a bit.
Just to point out, the trustees of Tātou Tātou and the other 7 Kāhuis do not work in the way that's been suggested. But there is a solution, if I can remember our own trustee right, and is that you can, it's just as easy as co-opting Uncle Blighty onto Twinart as a co-opted member somehow. It's in there somewhere.
Yep, right.
But currently none of the trustees work in the way that's been suggested. But
That's
there is
if
an
we
easy
want
fix
him on
for it.
there, eh?
I think the key message that we're getting is to have communicate
Yeah.
with Uncle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And,
yeah,
and
that's it.
I got that. Got it
Because
very
you
well.
fellas are still working yourselves out for starters, the Twinart umbrella, eh? You
Yeah.
fellas are still working through it. So how can you bring him in when you don't even know what you're quite there yet? You're not quite there yet in terms of setting up of the Kāhui.
I think I got it loud and clear from Uncle, and I'm sure you all did, that, you know, he just wants to be a part of.
Yeah.
And so,
He misses you.
yeah. I'm sure we're going to enjoy those things.
Yeah. He just feels
Probably just need
left
the
out, that's
technology
all.
stuff. Yeah.
He's been in it for a long time and he's pissed off you aren't talking to him,
Exactly.
basically. So give it to him now, he's going to get it now.
No, I'd love to be closer.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah. I don't think we need to do a motion.
I think
No, I don't think it. I'm
It's
sorry
okay.
for emotion, because it's who we are as
Yeah.
whānau, and it's just
Not a problem.
thank you for tapping us on the nose and the head to say hey, and we will be inviting Uncle to participate.
Yeah.
Get your
And
hat
don't
ready,
you
Uncle.
moan either. Don't you moan if they bloody 2 ain't doing their job.
So that's
Well,
every
in 3 months.
Every
hours.
week,
2
every
hours
week for 2 hours.
In
we
3
meet on a
months we will be
Tuesday
having
night.
an AGM.
I'll have to try and
You know, and do we just put on, oh, we've been to training, or we've been to Kāhui Collective, or you know, in 12 months, surely we've moved from just a
Yeah.
aspiration, oh, we want mana motuhaka, da da da.
Yep,
Yeah.
We must surely move from
So-
those. Yeah.
kapai.
So can we move on from that then, and can I find out what's happened with the validators, please, committee?
Would that be a Tātou question? Because
Could be.
so
Oh, yeah,
can we just move
Yep,
on
yep,
with our?
we can, yep, do that. And the
We
trustee,
have another 40 pages to go.
Well, just before we do, because we have been trying to follow up on the validation side, because we've got validations that are still outstanding with us. But we do have a couple of. So you're a validator,
on the validator for,
and Uncle Bill and Uncle Walter are as well.
yeah.
So when was the last time you fellas met up?
Oh, I have never, since we started this round, the last
Right.
round I was, but this round, but Blighty did it
Stop pointing at me, eh?
He did it when he did the kaumātua thing. He did it at the same time. That's kei te pai.
Right.
And I did it before your elections, just once.
Just
There you
once.
go.
Before the elections because of the way
So
the
no one's
elections
ringing me. I'm feeling
So-
left out.
So just through the chair, so the part that sits with Tātou is calling for validators when we have registrations to consider.
Yeah.
But some time back, Tātou requested of each of the Kāhui who their validators were, and Whakaki was one of the first to actually
To
submit that.
respond. So it is, we have going through us to ensure finding dates or when that is, or just any type of communication, because we also found that we have names on the list that haven't been registered
Or they haven't been validated. They've registered,
No.
but they haven't been validated since you fellas have been on at the table.
What?
Madam Chair, just on
Yeah,
that.
just a question, Madam Chair. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm bloody. There you go.
There you go.
Young boy.
When I registered to Tātou, I ticked a box that Twin Art was my primary Kāhui. Why am I in another 5 now? Who gave my permission for my registration details to be used for writ, for nuhaka, for Hinamanuhiri? How did that happen?
No
Do you
idea,
know?
but
No.
we'll take that issue up, Nigel.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to point it out.
And so the marae that you're registered, they're also only the...
They asked us to tick a box, which was our primary.
Yeah.
So mine was Iwitea Twin Art. But I also put my whakapapa in around the district. I didn't realise it was going to be used to put me another Kāhui, otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
Right. Well, then that is the reason why you do get it, Nigel, is because, you know, you have that whakapapa linked to other marae and other Kāhui.
But when we first started, we were only allowed
Yeah.
to register to one.
That's right.
They never came back and said you can now register to others.
Until
Right.
I've
after.
heard they had a glitch in the system at one time, and people went, because I've asked them to remove me from all my waiene because I went up, never clicked on here.
But I think, Nigel, that in some of the other Kāhui, even though it's not your primary, you're still entitled to a vote, and I think that's why you ended up getting listed in the others that you had written down.
That makes perfect sense. I think my question is who gave the authority for that to happen when it wasn't at the start?
So it definitely wasn't from our table.
No, I know where it
You
come
know
from.
whether
I know
that was
where it
part of
has
the
children.
changes that you put through for the
Just to clarify, so there were, up until the point of our settlement and it becoming law, and the registration process with Tiki OS was your primary one determined the only place where you could vote, and that was for the deed of settlement purpose. After that, it opened up so that you could actually be part of any Kāhui.
That's right.
But your point is that you had ticked the box.
Yeah,
Who
indicated.
gave the
So who overruled that?
Yeah.
At what point? Because I also received it all on my wainia one without actually applying for it, and so there was a glitch in the system, which was on the Tiki OS system. But that was closed down. It shouldn't be happening anymore.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Thank you, Peter.
But the point is, Nigel, if you are registered with other marae outside of this Kāhui, then you will appear on their member list for the other Kāhui there, which is why they contact you. What are we trying to get to here as a Kāhui? That we only want to belong to one Kāhui? Or
No, should have been an individual choice if my details were used for the other Kāhuis. To me, it's stealing off Twin Art.
And it's around consent.
Yeah, it's a consent thing. Yeah, but it's okay. It's been explained well, and I'm happy with the answer. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll just remove myself from the other ones.
Perfect.
Just a reminder, through you, Madam Chair, that my understanding is Marae are not registered members of this Kāhui.
That's correct.
It's only individual people that are validated Because I do the validation for Whakaki, Liz does the validation for Iwitea, and Heta does the validation for Ki too. And we have never validated a marae.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's individuals that are validated members. I just want to remind everyone about that. Say, oh, well, fuck, he's a member, or Iwitea's a member. That's not true. Through the validation process, it's just the individual members.
That's correct.
So, any requests to this Kāhui should be by the registered members. And Marae are not a registered member.
Yeah.
I just wanted to remind everybody about that. I know it's getting picky and whatever, but that's how it is. Yeah. Well, thank you, Madam Chair.
So, hore tunu on my chair report or?
Next, yeah.
Next one. Let's go to the COVID update. So during the COVID space, we, both Nigel and I, had volunteered to be in the space during the civil defence space, and from that there was some data that was drawn out. Because we had 6 hubs, food hubs, that's why I'm really disappointed to hear that only KE came to you, Uncle, because we had 6 hubs, which was based at Mahia, Whakaki, Nuhaka, Whakaki, Town, the Lake, and Raipunga, where food was actually being distributed out to our mai whanau, which is our kaumātua and queer, and our whānaus who were in need. So it actually really...
Actually, it was a miscommunication because all the entities in town were working together, and a KE employee turned up. That KE employee was part of a wider team, so it just looked like KE was delivering. But they were working with Te Whare Maere, the Taiwhenua, Tātou, we were all working together. Yeah.
From a Kāhui point of view, it was pretty clear that we wanted to support from Tātou as well to ensure that our whānau were looked after during that trying time. So what I did was, due to Nigel's mahi, we were able to draw on the data, and it was really clear how many adults that we fed, how many children we fed, but how many that we, when need to, we actually pulled in to be able to support our whānau. And I think from a Kāhui and a Tātou point of view, it was about how do we get behind our whānau, our Kāhui, to ensure that they have got the basic fundamentals during this trying time that was uncertain to us all. So I wanted to add this in because this was quite a chunky part of my space, as well as your trustees during this time. We still continued with our every week mahi, but it was just updating them on where we were, and just this sort of gives a bit of puka around some of this COVID stuff. But I just wanted to put it at the front end because we want to move on from there. But I know that we have a few photos and stuff that we want to share. So this is through the so there again, Tātou in regards to how we can support around the heat, and thank you to Richard about getting our wood. So each marae was delivered, I think, 2 quarts of wood, and from there we wanted to capture this work that's been going on just inside our whānau over the time as well, around the chopping up of the wood, the delivering it, and the stuff coming through the Tātou space around how they support our Kāhui. So we wanted to, do we have a video? And then obviously our precious Trevor's captured a lot of this on videos.
The Whakaki Marae woodworking bees were a huge success. Whānau and community events such as these show the ultimate love and passion our people have for our homelands. And we as a whānau band together in common cause, great positive outcomes occur. A significant amount of wood was delivered to Whakaki Marae from Tātou o te Wairoa from their forestry interests. Over 40 decent loads went out to our Whakaki whānau and to our wider whānau whānui in Te Rohe o te Wairoa. This kaupapa and the actions of our whānau volunteers emphasise the true essence of ahika. Ahika is an action, not a title. From my perspective, when the marae calls, whānau near and far return to heed the call and to keep the home fires burning. Nā mihi nui ki te tātou o te Wairoa, their forestry partners Wharirata and Patunamu, and most importantly, te whānau o te whakaki. With your support, we can continue to make the world a better place for us all in the future. E te iwi. Love and light.
Yeah. He had some amazing videos coming out over during COVID, which sort of touches down on everything that we're doing. So that was just an update around in regards to just where we are as a marae and what's been happening in the attractional space. So we wanted to share that because I think even though we haven't seen each other for 9 months or enough, we know that we're still doing or tugging behind doing stuff for each marae. So that was my report. Thank you very much. I think we're going to move on. So Bob's going to go through the Kāhui membership.
Yeah, just a quick update in terms of our membership. So that's where we stand at the moment. Of the voting members, that's the top number there. We have 951 within our Kāhui. So that also would include all those people where whakaki nui a rua is not their primary Kāhui. So it includes everyone who whakapapas into the rohe here. So the ones non-voting members, one's too young there, 426, we've got a few in the pipeline there. And then this was the number for us that we wanted to investigate, our 55 registrations that were pending validation.
Can I just ask, Uncle, did you sign some validations at the Kaumātua hui? Have you recently validated some registrations?
Well, I haven't taken a total count of it, but I believe what you've got there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But we've only been validating, over this 5 years, we've been validating people. And some of them live in the district, some of them don't. So even though we've got a membership of that amount, I don't know how many live in Auckland, how many live in Canterbury or whatever. But I can believe the figures because we've been validating for 5 years now.
Yes, he had been validated just recently.
That's
what he told me a few weeks ago. But tell me something. Can you tell me, for those under 18, as soon as they turn 18, is it they automatically going to be shifted into the?
Most of them won't be because they haven't completed the application themselves. So because younger ones there,
they won't automatically get sent something.
Not as I understand it. Yeah.
Just,
yes.
Yeah. As I understand it, once they turn 18, they're validated by virtue of their parents being validated. That's my understanding. We had a discussion about this.
Yeah. So they will go across automatically?
Because if their parents are validated, then they're validated.
But do they become...
So,
but do they become a member in their own right? Is that...
When they turn 18, voting. Well, they're already a member, it's just that they're a non-voting member at the moment because they're not 18.
So they'll automatically move over, but I think they should be sent something, an application or something, to verify all their contact details or something, to update their records, and then they become an adult member.
So I'll take an action point to follow up on that one there.
Yeah, because if you look at those registrations, because I have access to for us, and most of those kids that are on there are registered with their parents' email, parents' phone number.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, and that stuff
the parent
doesn't
actually
get
did
updated
it.
because they're registered under their parents.
Is there a means of contacting them? Like, do we have a way of putting on a database or somehow that you can see that, 20 people this year are going to turn 18, send them a message?
We do have access. We do have access through Bob to the database itself.
Maybe we could do that. Just send them some kind of notification to say you now need your 18, you need to register in your own right.
Just a question, if this is our Whakinui-a-Rua's beneficiary base
Yes,
by ourselves,
yes.
in terms of, just a question, in terms of the total Taro beneficiary base, how does that sit in percentage-wise?
8,500 is where the total database is sitting at the moment. So that's the percentage of 8,500.
That's the total beneficiary base? Can't be.
So 8,500 is the total ones
Oh, yeah.
who are validated members.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, so we're a reasonable size
So
car.
size
aren't we?
key, yeah. So Twinata's got what, more than 10% of the whole of Tato.
1432.
Yeah.
Over 10%.
Was there anything you particularly want to see in terms of a further breakdown of this? Like you mentioned around those who have their primary as Whakinui-a-Rua, and then there are those who don't, who are included in this number. So would be a breakdown of that sort of thing, and also of location, like in Norohe, outside Norohe. We can certainly get that sort of detail.
It'd be good if you just put it up on the website,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Well, it's good to know, this is the first time in the 10 years of our operation that I've ever actually seen a figure on the board, like for Whakaki anyway, Whakinui-a-Rua.
Knowing where they're located is quite important because all of the hui that Tato did leading up to the legislation was based on where the proportion of members were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they went to 9 different places.
Yeah.
Point.
Right.
Papa?
So you put the breakdown of information on the website.
On the website.
So what I've just taken note there is to show which of those, what's the breakdown by our
Locality.
primary,
Yep.
that are our primary, and then also by some regional breakdown.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Kāhui.
Financial update, that's me. So this is a snapshot of our accounts as at the end of June. So these figures haven't been validated by accountants yet. We're due to receive our accounts back by the end of October. But this is what the situation in our ledger looked like. So I just wanted to take that through with you. So as at the 30th of June, this was pretty much what the outcome of our balance sheet was. So we're sitting in the credit to $583,000. That's based on, this is the distribution that we received this year, and then last year, sorry. And then you'll see on the next slide. Was there retained earnings?
Wow. 7.
Where do I go here?
Can you make those figures a bit bigger?
I'll try to, Uncle.
I know I'm half blind. Hang on, I'll come up there and read it.
Yeah, no, I can't, unfortunately, in slide mode, Uncle.
Can you tell us what they are?
Yeah, read them now.
Yeah. So, in terms of what our current, I'll go through this one. I'll go through our profit and loss first. So this was our income earnings, the distribution for 2019, which was 352. It was the same amount for this year as well. We received that income there, and where the distributions is coming through for next year, so that should be the same amount also.
So we've only got one distribution there.
Sorry?
Should be 2.
There's 2. There's the one in 2019 and the one in 2020 there. Okay.
Like the distribution from Tato is 359,000.
Yes.
We've got 354,000 there.
So 352, the figure is from Tato.
352.
Yep, 33328. So there's 3 of those to come in. 2 of those have come in already. When Tato pay out the next distribution, then that'll be the last for that amount there.
So we're getting our.
But if we've got 2 distributions of 352,000, how come we only got 354
That's a yearly.
Because the next books.
as our final figure?
Gross profit.
In fact, it's 248.
Yes, that's because we've got all these operating expenses here that offset what that income was for the year. So our expenses for last year were minimal compared to this year. So out of that distribution that we got, we had expenses of 17,000. This year we've had expenses of 106,000.
Yeah.
And you'll see that the biggest component of that is within what's just been put into that salaries bracket. So
I'm just looking at it that it should be closer to $1 million in there.
Well, it will be after our
Well,
next
700,000 anyway, because there's been two lots in there.
Yeah,
Yep.
the book's got it.
Yeah, which is
Well, we only got 248.
so it's 672, 334, 668, which are those 2 here. But it's income that we were talking about before. This bit here minus expenses gives you what your net position is for the year. So in the first year, we only had $17,000 worth of expenses, so that's what that took
Yeah.
our net income
Yeah.
down to. For 2020 here, we've had that much in expenses, which is a big hit. And then that's what we're looking at in terms of our net profit for the
Gee,
year.
someone's on some good
So-
wages.
So,
Someone's on some good wages.
yeah, as we talked around at our last AGM, there was a few months of, for the remuneration that we put forward at our last
Yeah,
AGM,
and it was passed, yeah.
yeah, that's 72,000, but there was also some backdating because we hadn't
Yeah,
been paid to
18,000.
date. Yeah. So that's where that figure there comes from, the 84.
Yeah, but even if you took, 100,000 off, $700,000.
No, so these are just years, Uncle. So these are 2019. That's how we finished at the end of the year. 334 in the black. This year, as at the 30th of June, we've finished that much in the black, which
Well,
we
when
go
is your
back to here. That
when is
gives
the
us-
ending of your
There's a number there.
ending of your financial year?
So this is what we are there.
30th of June.
583,716.38. That's what our total
That's what's in the
assets
bank.
are. Yep, 550 of that is in term deposit at the moment, and we have some in our current account there. Those are the only assets that we have. We don't have any. It's all money. We don't have any other types of assets currently. Yeah, so this will be adjusted here because our current liabilities, they've got to take into account what may have been accrued. They won't change substantially, but there will be some change.
Yeah, I can't see it from back down there.
So,
So I've got to come up here. and
any
pick it up.
numbers? Yeah.
Engage in discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think
Were
what
there
Bob did say is around our, we have been putting money into an interest term, so at least it grows something. And we'll continue that until we can sit down and say, hey.
At what interest?
It's 1
Yeah.
point.
Are you
get up
fellas
to
considering
1.5?
putting it elsewhere?
Yes, we
Yes, we
have.
are.
So we're looking at we do have some options in that regard, and we're going to firm up those options before our AGM this year, so that we can put something on the table.
I can also add to that as well in terms of opportunities through Tātou and the commercial board.
Any other questions around the financials?
No. Someone's on good wages.
Yeah.
That would be us three trustees.
Three of us. I'm sure you would have cleaned them at the AGM. You would have seen what they look like.
Yeah, we approved it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Mangapoiki.
So if there's no more questions on the financials, we'll go next.
You said that with bated breath.
Mangapoiki. Yes.
Can we go to the next slide?
Slide.
I'd like to move that the financial report be received.
Kāhui, Uncle.
You want?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Who you voting?
Okay. Can I vote? All in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Kia ora. Okay, like that. Wow.
On the understanding you're going to do it again at the AGM, exactly the same.
So, bit of
So when do we get our third drop? When's our third drop due?
So the third drop is due around about December this year, subject to audited accounts and having concluded an
And is it the
AGM.
whole amount?
It's the last
It will
amount.
be the last third of 300.
Kāpai. It's not going to be.
It's about 352,000.
Yeah, kāpai.
What comes after that is the question.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
probably.
Any public discussion?
In terms of this Mangapoiki, and I'm not whispering, in terms of the Mangapoiki block, I know it was brought up in the claims process, and Whakinui expressed an interest in the block. I would expect that our trust or trustees would develop a business case to look at purchasing and spending $5 million of my money to purchase some land that's grown gorse and blackberry. I would expect that there was a business case to present to us, the members, so we can say, kia ora, tautoko, or kia ora, get out of there. You know, so, but to just put it up like that and then expect some kind of resolution.
So I can talk to
So
this.
No,
You
no,
mind
no,
that?
We're just
that's
explaining.
So
Are
I'll
you going to
talk.
give us all the background to the
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Well, I want to start a conversation. All we're doing is,
I can sit down and wait.
That's right.
I think in order to start a conversation, it's good to ensure that everyone in the room knows the actual
What's
where we're
going
going
on.
on. And so today was about that. So allowing Piri to do we've asked him to do the process because he's been the head.
So they're merely bullet points. So there's a little bit of context in behind that. It's important to look back and say, where did it come from? It's part of our property redress, which is part of our settlement. About 2 years ago, there were representatives from each of our 3 marae who sat down and looked at the 24 deferred selection properties, DSPs. And the one that they indicated that we need to have interest in was Mangapoiki. So that's how it's DSP is deferred selection property. It's one of 24. It's part of our complete settlement. And of the 24, our Kāhui expressed an interest just in Mangapoiki. Mangapoiki is, Nigel's probably the better one to talk about this, but Mangapoiki is a huge lot of whenua. And what we're talking about here is just one small part of it, Mangapoiki A. And it's about 1,094 hectares. It is a lot, but it's, I've put up here that it's about 42 hectares forestry, approximately 500 hectares of pasture, and the balance is severe erosion. And it's got 2 rivers, one that runs down on the northern side, the Mangapoiki, and it's got another one, Mangapu, I think, which actually runs down from up Waituna way. And it's been farmed by the 4th generation now of Jake's Blake Whānau as part of the Mangapoiki station. Without this, their station composes about 2,900 hectares. They originally purchased it off the Pāka Whānau about 1909, but it was obtained by the Crown prior to that and it was purchased by, I understand, the Parker family back in the 1880s. What happened was Dan's great-grandfather, there were a number of siblings, and the only way that they could actually sort of buy and keep it together was to pay out, so they put 1,000 back towards the Crown, and that's where they got the money for. And so they've been trying ever since to actually get it back, but of course it ultimately ended up with New Zealand Forest Service and then with the Crown Land Bank. Because I've been hearing quoted about those bloodsuckers sort of paying $1 a year to the Crown, was actually part of the station that they actually sold back to the Crown and have been trying to buy it back ever since. So we had an opportunity to go up and spend a day with them. They were a very hospitable couple, put on a kai for us, took us out in ATMs and took us all over the 1,094 hectares. It's a hard piece of whenua. So your question might be right, Uncle Blighty. We're in a DSP process, and just to sort of close this one down, where the requirement in our settlement and in our trust deed was that we have to have the approval of Tā Manuhiri in terms of the nominated entity that would ultimately hold ownership, and also an agreement to the transfer value and purchase from the Crown. And in terms of the Crown, that's LINZ, Land Information New Zealand. That's who we're working with. We achieved the notice of interest there's a process you have to follow. It's got definitive dates in it. And the 12th of May was the first gate we had to get through with Tā Manuhiri for them to agree that we put a notice of interest in. And they did. And since then, we've been working closely with Tā Manuhiri, with their trust, which is Tā Manuhiri Tutu Poro Trust. And we've been working with them initially just to start a conversation around whakapapa. Whakapapa, we had one hui on the 22nd of February this year. They came across, they listened, and just to acknowledge Iwitea, Marae, in particular Nigel and Pita, and those who have done all the research in terms of this whenua. And they presented and shared that with Tā Manuhiri on the day. Tā Manuhiri didn't speak. They said that they would invite us back so we could go back to Muriwai and listen to their kōrero. We achieved that on the 30th of August, just recently. We went over, visited, and in a similar way we said we'll come, we'll listen, and then we'll return back home, and then we'll talk amongst ourselves. I've received a request from Pauline Hill, who's the chair, Tutu Poro Trust. She says, when can we have another hui? I says, please share your slide deck with us, and once we have receipt of that, we'll be in communication as to whether or not we have another hui. The process we're working through now, and we've got a meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m, is to look at a mana whenua process that might involve mediation, arbitration, but through that discussions, to see whether or not this brings us to a point where we want to buy it. And I think at that point we would consider all options, because we're not farmers, I don't think. And our one is to say, okay, well, what would we ultimately want this for? Because it's going to cost us. From the day that we purchase it, it will cost us money. And somehow we need to offset that. And to do that, we need to receive proposals, business proposals. But we're not yet at that stage. We're still working through. Tato, if we agreed on all I've discussed, would purchase it. The Kāhui couple here, which at the moment is 3 of the Kāhui, there's Tāpokoro Whānui, Mai Tāwhiti and ourselves, and then Manuhiri withdrew. We're yet to go through our own process to determine, is it all 3, is it 2, is it 1, or is it none? So that's the process that we're working through at the moment. LINZ are just holding things up. Because that 42 hectares, they're trying to determine who it belongs to. Whether it belongs to Jukin, who planted it, or not. And also around the 2 rivers I described. A bit of sympathy for LINZ, because all they've done is inherited all these archival files, including this one. And it says that any river that passes through there that at high point is wider than 3 metres, which both of these are, requires surveying under the Conservation Act. So there's all these little fish hooks that LINZ has to tidy up before they can give full disclosure. So any questions about Magapui?
So through the chair, what Walter's talking about is that end part, coming up with the business case. Because we're still a long way from that, I feel. We're still a long way from getting to that point. We haven't even got it in our court yet. It's still out there. And through Tato and our Kāhui couple here are still working through that process. And it ain't even, we're still a long way away from it.
Until now, no one's said anything about it. And so until Piri has stood up now and said where Tato and everybody else is at it, now I understand. But previous to that, I thought you're running around there with a bloody chapel. They've already been up there on the helicopter. So for me, there's a process begun. And also, I just wanted to ask the question, is Tato going to buy it and own it? Or are they going to take it out of our share of the dividend? Each year we're going to pay $500,000 towards, that's
good question.
That's interesting.
And is our Kāhui going to buy it, thinking of buying it?
That's what we're going to bring back.
So there's a few things that need to happen. So what we're waiting, the next step we're waiting for is Lynn's to give disclosure. Disclosure involves valuations, both from Crown and from ourselves. So they're waiting for the information. So there's quite a bit to go through before we'd actually reach a point about whether or not we're interested based on the transfer values. The way the process works at the moment is we've had some legal people who have proposed a structure around a nominated entity. What we have an agreement with Tato on is that once the transfer values are known, Manuhiri agrees with those if they're still in the picture. At that point, it's our choice to buy it. The mechanism to buy it would be Tato buys it, because the Crown's not going to talk to us. They'll only talk to Tato. They buy it, Tato puts it into our company, and it's our KBUs, our Kāhui beneficial units, that we can use to pay for it if we don't want to contribute cash.
But those are options, eh?
They're all options.
Can I just ask a question, because I'm trying to sort of catch up on this part. So at the moment, we're just investigating who owns it. So is it available for ownership by somebody? Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Just generalising.
Yeah. So it's part of our settlement. It's a Tato settlement, DSP.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's...
So the option will be for Tato to buy it, but Tato is working with our three Kāhui.
Okay.
And so we've set up a nominal structure that we could look at. We have to get an agreement from Tā Manuhiri to that nominated structure.
Do we, as part of the, and I'm just thinking about this, as part of the process of evaluation, get a statement of accounts from them as to whether or not it's a profitable venture? What's their GST for the last couple of years? Because I think, I wonder if that's something that
no, it doesn't feature.
Oh, okay.
Because it's bare land. The fencing and the actual fertilisation of it hasn't been maintained for the last 15, 20 years.
So it is a liability.
So I think one of the things that Kelly said is around when we ascertain from Lynn's what that looks like in regards to the valuation, we can then have a look about what, is there something, the feasibility stuff on it, and we can do it then. But until then, we've got really nothing sustainable to actually come and do. And that's all the reason why we're talking about it now, of course, that because we're heading into some kind of direction.
I'm happy with this the way we're going.
Yeah.
I don't want to, because your record is that in another 10 months we'll have another meeting, and then they'll suddenly say, here, buy it or not. I'd like to think that this information sharing, we can all go home and have a think about it, but to come back with your record, we're going to have another 10 months before, and then all of a sudden you've got to act together and say, here, sign here, please.
No.
This is great. This is just great.
We've got a wee bit more water to run under the bridge before we reach a point. But because it's a significant purchase, then really it would need to come back here. And to those other kāhui that are engaged in the same transaction, they would need to take it back, no doubt.
But the normal run of thing is that in this meeting, in 2 hours, we have to absorb all the information you've gathered over 5 years and suddenly say, hey, took here, bro. So you may have to have 2 meetings to say, go home with this information, think about it, talk to people in the industry, and then come back at another meeting. These 5-minute wonders, they drive me insane.
I think the point was made earlier on about more regular communications. So, yeah, sorry.
Well, it's hinting. I'm only hinting.
Have a meeting.
So, question at the back, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora.
Ko kore Simon tēnei. Tēnā nei tōku pāpā. Whai hau. Kia koutou kari anō. Kia mōhi oko wai tēnei. He uri no whakaki. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. Pātai, so it probably, aroha mai, tōku kuare nei. It probably happened with you, Nigel, and Peter, but interested as to why this was the only DSP this kāhui went for, as it was it to do with our whakapapa link there to the area?
Our mana whenua status for whakaki ki to Iwitea.
Yeah. So that, and yeah, it would be neat again if potentially we could have maybe even a summary of the quarter, or maybe that you and Peter went just as a background to this, to lead us in, because it was interesting to hear this was the only one, and I thought, oh, there must be a link or a strong link why we only went for that one. So it'd be really good if we could find that out in some way.
Kia ora.
So we've only been talking about this for how long?
A year.
I think from what I gauged, it's the only DSP that whakaki nui aroa is actually involved in, which part is the way.
Madam Chair, can I just suggest that we have at these meetings something to take, away, like the financials printed, information about manapoiti, all that. Can we have them in written handouts when we have meetings?
Copy of the slides?
Yeah, and just things that we can take
all
away.
All of that is on our website, Rita. All of that information, pānui, is all on our website, the Whakinga website.
And
don't think we've quite put our presentations that we've had up in these meetings here, but we can do that. We don't have a problem with it.
So just to close off this one here. Tēnei tākoe mihi kā koe rā kōrei. Pai tō pātai. And I think the information, and we're grateful that Nigel shared with Tā Manuhiri, is probably good information that would precisely answer the question that you had about this DSP. So, and we were able to share that, are we not?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to add to that, these DSP properties, but there's also other properties that Whakaki Nuiara is interested. So one of those is, what's that forest's name? Pachinamu.
Te Kumi Pākarai.
Kumi Pākarai.
Yeah. And that's in particular to Pākarai Forest, which is just up the back here. But also Āreta Tirito had an interest in Patunamu corpus itself, and that's up to Whakaki when the time comes, whether to do a bit more research, because his name's in the list of owners, but we don't know if he's there on his Apatu side or his Whakaki side. And so we put it's not a DSP property, it's a different one. So we're in Patunamu for 2 reasons. One, because Āreta Tirito was there and we saw his name, but that's up to Whakaki to do more research. And Pākarai Station, which used to be an Iwitea farm once upon a time. With all the other properties, because they're spread throughout from Mahia up to Taringa and all through the Wairoa Township. When Heta, myself and Naomi met to go through the list, I think it was 3 years ago we went through the list, we only identified the properties, and they include gift back properties, conservation reserves as well, that were within our mana whenua area solely. Because there's some other ones, so for DSP, deferred selection process, only one, but there's other properties as well that we have an interest in that are under different classifications.
Yeah. Come on.
Okay. One thing else just for us to discuss is that at last year's AGM, we put to the floor around proposed amendments or amendments for consideration to our trustee, and there are the 3 points that are up there. So change the votal posting for our trustee elections, the addition of our Tātou rep onto our trust board, and also to extend the term of the initial trustees to match up with our AGM. So our approach was to go and seek feedback from our members on what they think of those changes there. Was also to draft some changes for review, should they go ahead, and then seek member feedback on those changes and present for a review and adoption at this year's AGM. The second point there around the addition of our Tātou rep, who's petty to our trust board, was something from the trustees that we initially put up there. After discussing and after sort of working out what our roles and responsibilities are, we've dropped that one. So pretty much come up with these two, which is the trustee elections, change the postal voting, and also to extend the term of the initially elected trustees to align with our AGM. So we did go out there, we put a survey out there to our members and asked for input. So thanks everybody. I know there's a few in the room who responded to that request there. Just in terms of what those results were, so in total you probably aren't able to see, but we got 52 responses back to our survey. Remember what that is a proportion of our base, which is fairly low. And certainly coming through from that was a strong agreement to having the change to our voting process. There were some very good points raised from out of that. And, you know, suggestions as to doing both, that sort of thing. On the change the period of service so that we're having our elections at AGM and not outside of that, there was 86% agreement to that. So those are basically the results that we got back from the survey. Where does that leave it?
Question,
Yep.
don't go too fast.
Yeah.
Just a question in terms of very little information was given on that change to postal voting.
Yeah.
No information was put forward to say it was going to cost us $200,000 to run this postal voting.
Yeah.
How can I vote if I don't know what the cost is?
So
already our budget is being eroded by $106,000 a year. And now you're proposing another $200,000 to do postal voting. Or have I got it wrong? Because I haven't heard any figures.
No, and you haven't had your new figures. So just to finish it off, I hear what you
Sure.
said, Uncle. In terms of the one about the first elected trustee period of service, there's actually, when we started talking to the lawyers about drafting changes to the trustee, so there's a bit in the trustee that mentions what the trustee's period of service is, and then there's a bit that specifies what our election process is. So in the bit that specifies our election process, it states that those trustee elections will be in line with the AGM. And being in line with the AGM, because this is the second year coming up to our second AGM, It requires the whakakī marae representative, which is myself at this point, but there needs to be a vote for the whakakī trustee. It's coming up to the second AGM, so according to our trustee, we need to have that vote. So the only way that we can do that vote at the moment is in person, because that's what our trustee says. In line with the trustees, we will be having a whakakī marae representative election this year. It is required prior to this year's AGM, and we need to use a vote at meeting process. So that will happen. At the moment, we've got a booking date for our AGM, which is the 21st of November. So the day before that, which is a Sunday.
22nd,
That's our AGM, but the 21st is whakakī.
Yeah, so that's
Hang
on.
on, when's Tato's, isn't it the
It's on the
21st?
You're December, aren't you?
No, 21st of November, isn't it?
I think it is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. And you fellas got ours on the same day.
Yep.
No, we've got our Te Whakakī Nui Arawā is on the Sunday the 22nd, but we're going to run this process for whakakī on the day before.
On the Saturday.
On the
Yeah,
Saturday.
no, that's the same day as Tato. I think.
Yeah. Tato's AGM is on Saturday the 21st.
Yeah.
It's usually at night though, isn't it?
In the
No, it'll
afternoon,
be
yeah.
1 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
1 o'clock and Hakari at 3.
Oh, there you go, you have the
Two.
whakakī one.
Two, yeah.
In the morning.
Who's hosting it this year, Coach?
Oh, they haven't confirmed it's between either Whānui or Hinemanuri.
Okay.
So, not knowing that those things dates, we've had that target date for our AGM for some time.
Did you say 1 o'clock, Piri?
Yeah, it'll be 1 o'clock, but something will come out.
Yeah.
But I actually had Sunday the 22nd of November for the Kāhui
Yes.
AGM.
Yes, no,
Yeah,
that's
Kāhui,
that's
we're talking
correct.
about the whakakī.
Yeah. So it's what's up there. Our Kāhui AGM will be on the 22nd. What we're proposing is that we do the whakakī marae representative election the previous day on the 21st, because it has to be voting
Before the AGM.
vote at meeting.
You have yours in the morning, you have
Yeah.
a cup of tea, then go to their one and eat their food after.
And have lunch, yeah.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, Kate's like, yep.
So in terms of the other change, which is the change to postal voting, what we get, even though the online survey come out overwhelmingly in favour of moving to a postal voting, we still think it's inconclusive as to what the wishes of the majority may be. We have people coming who physically attend the meeting who says, yeah, this is the best way for us to be doing our elections, and then you get those who aren't able to attend the meeting, who are saying otherwise. To your point, Uncle, so we've deferred the changes
We
for this year.
need more information, Bob.
Yeah, so that's the point there. The pros and cons need to be shared with you. One of those, part of that is the costs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
whole
the cost,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not the only thing. There's some, we did get some great feedback back from the survey, so we'll be including that.
And that's why we
as
left
well.
it out at the beginning, because it was going to cost the marae on our first AGM a lot of money, the marae,
So
to run
the
those.
Yeah.
The hui was
Process.
here when we stood up and said that this process works for Te Whakakī Nui Aroa because we were attending all our huis.
Yeah.
And that was the decision that was made off the table with Chapman Trips Pacific Sydney lining that up.
Yeah, so we've gone back out to the
Kāhui.
company that ran our elections round the first time, Porty Elections, to talk about the selection that we have coming forward, but also to give us those price indications around what is a postal vote cost to us.
Yeah, the cost factor, I
Yep.
think, should be shared with the registered members.
Yep.
Because you showed us some financials, and we have no way of knowing whether they're true or not. It's not an audited account, so it's only a suggestion of what was spent. and looking at it from my memory, is $106,000 it already cost us this year, 2020. What is the cost going to be added to that?
Yeah.
So before I can vote, I need to look at the fiscal thing side of it as well.
Yeah. So those are, we do need to pull together all that good feedback and also the information we have and share that before we go back out to our members again and ask them.
Kāhui, so it's deferred.
Because I'd hate to think that for 12 months or even 2 years, that we as the registered members have got a load of firewood for our fire, and it's going to cost us almost $200,000 out of our budget. That blows me away.
Yeah, cheaper to go and get
No,
our
I mean
own
the
wood,
trustees are dragging 72,000, and we're past that. That's fine. But it's continuing adding to the expenses. Yeah, and then we get a load of wood in the winter time. Yeah, it's things got to be improved before the spending keeps going. Keeps going. Kill them. I know it's not an easy job, but you put the hand up, so I'm in there.
No,
So have you now.
I did.
So
Yeah, so
can't wait for you to do
We
it.
did.
Yeah. Can't wait to have you
Not that I
do
want
it.
your job.
Yeah. So next year we'll get back onto it, but for this year it's gone.
It stays in status quo.
Can I just raise
Sorry about
a
that.
question?
Yeah. What
So earlier
what
on,
spiel you got?
it was merely an observation. So we indicated earlier we had 1,400 odd members for our card. Our survey had only 52 respondents.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a question about whether or not we believe that is sufficient to actually draw conclusions from.
And that's
We don't.
from the table, we did not think that was sufficient.
Because we know that, the 20 to 40 people that come along to these meetings, they think different, the majority of them think differently in terms of...
And through you, Madam Chair, thank you, Uncle Bob, because when we were establishing our trustee that set it up that way, there were between 40 and 60 people who said no postal voting, come to your marae to vote, and expect you to do it once every 6 years.
Yeah.
So, kia ora, that's a really good point.
It's more like it's a public relations exercise on how to get people to engage. It's a shit of a job, but it's probably something that we have to consider as our kāhui. How do we, when we see, for someone like me, and you send me out an email about administration, I'm on it. But most people are not like that. They're not odd. Administration is just, they're more about the wood. They're more about those other tangible things. So maybe it's something we've got to think about is how do we get them to engage? Because 50 out of 1,400 is not much.
That's not representative.
But then that could be, when we have a look at voting that happens across Motu, is that the norm? That's the question, is that the norm? Yeah.
Because there's always going to be the fact that you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
During this trying time of COVID, we've had to, how are we going to engage with our whānau when we're only allowed to have 10 in the room?
Yeah, exactly.
And just the fact that we're on a level that allows us to have 100, that's a yippee. But then, tomorrow it might change back to 10. So it's about how do we move as a kāhui to know that we're still moving together. We're not trying to leave anyone behind, but trying to figure out how do we move, and then we get a 52% of a report back, and a few of them are in the room, so that they attend the huis. I think just the more feedback that we're getting from just the space, but even we're trying to open the options of websites, emailing. Joanna's always on our emails to ensure we get anything and reply back.
Maybe we have to engage some rangatahi to do it for us. Put them alongside him.
Don't do that to him.
I'm not going to do that to him because I'll get it. So, but yes.
I just want to question our Tara rep over here.
Go ahead, Uncle, go
Well,
ahead.
they got their Piri Mana, I think that's him over there.
Yes.
Yeah, just a question, Piri, in terms of, you know, I'm still singing the same song, come out to the flats, come out to the flats, come out to the flats. But in terms of the planning and maybe the acquisition or even the development of that program, is the expectation of Taro that the Kāhui should build a run? Or is Taro available to maybe invest in Kaumātua Flats? Because it'd be interesting to see if Taro's view on the matter, on our housing, if you've got a housing portfolio. Does Kāhui have to make available part of its distribution towards the Kaumātua Flats? At the moment, we're spending it like honey. But if we had a commitment to Kaumātua Flats from the Kāhui point of view, or is it Taro going to look at investing into Kaumātua Flats? I don't know whether you've got that far in your planning as Taro. Question.
Can I have my first slide?
Naomi's got an answer.
I see where Pierre's got it in his report, so
Now, everybody's familiar with the structure, so we can
Yeah.
move
go
on.
past that one.
Everyone knows that.
That one?
Yeah, okay. I'll start with the question, but I'm just going to sneak in a liability out clause at the beginning. and that is, my reporting line, I tend to see it, I sit at the table on behalf of our Kāhui. I engage in the collective decision making that Tato has, but I report back through our trust.
Yep.
And so
Julian Wilcox.
I bomb the trust with all of the emails that are coming through, and I'm aware that Lewis Ratapu, our general manager, he produces monthlies about what he's doing in the operative management space, and he bombs you fellas, the chairs of all of the Kāhui with that. So that's the reporting line, the information flow that comes from the position that I sit on as your elected member there.
Can I just answer that
Okay.
question? So, Uncle, through my portai at the Tai Whenua, and it is you, the reason why I think is around your Kaumātua Flats, is we pulled together a collective of our Māori organisations and set them at the table to ask about what are they doing for housing in their own spaces. And Tata was sitting at that hui, so Lewis was there. So we needed to do a current analysis of what's happening in Wairau around housing, so we can pull in the money and not spend our money. So we need to do a strat. So what has happened out of that is the Tai Whenua, Tato and the Wairau District Council as our partners have put in $5,000 each to produce this housing strat. From this housing strategy, we can work into other things that sort of fit and aligned with what we're doing in our Kāhui space. I selfishly do these things because of where I sit in between my Marae, Kāhui and the Tai Whenua. And if we don't need to put any money in the game, then we're not. So doing this housing strat is one way we can work to ensure that happens at Tato's end, but also how does the government put into the space? Because that's their, they have to.
Someone else's money.
It's someone else's money. So not only in that space, we want to work in many other stuff that fit in line with our Kāhui to ensure that our money is sitting in there so we can look at growth in it. And we'll spend other people's money. Well, that's what I'm looking at. But that's your update on your... So once we get that done, and it's coming to our table, and then we'll be able to look towards where can we put our Kaumātua Flats? Where can we put our single housing? Where can we build more bigger homes for our whānau that have more than 2 children? So that's the bigger stuff that I want to look at, and so having a discussion.
But it's very early days
Yes,
in terms
very.
of housing strategy. So the answer is it's not just at Kaumātua Flats.
It's out a broader housing strategy across the whole of Wainua. Probably the other part to add into that, because there's a lot of DSPs again that are down Scott Street that are coming up as part of the DSP process. So the way Tātou is approaching that with LINs is to block these into potentially what are residential as compared to rural and commercial type interests. So there are properties, but we'll have to work with the Kāhui that have expressed interest in those properties and involve them as part of this housing strategy. So that's just a wee bit about what I'm involved in on your behalf at the Tātou table. I'm our negotiator for the DSP Mangapoike. We've got a FAR committee, a Finance Audit and Risk Committee, which I chair, and I'm Deputy Chair still at our board table. That's just who you're probably well aware in terms of our forestry directors, Shane and Julian Wilcox at Whanawata.
Julian Con, not Wilcox.
Oh, sorry. I must have money and Tina on my mind. So that's a correction, thank you. And cousin Richard and Brian McKinley on Patunanu. Your commercial arm directors for Tātou, Tony Grove's the chair, Tina Porau, and actually just with Tina because she's got some bloody great information. And the other, just last Friday, she's having a discussion with WFL Wharirata, and that was around mana taiao frameworks, and bringing in mātauranga Māori, our biodiversity, all of these things as part of our moving ahead with our forestry, something that we might be able to replicate with Patunanu as well. And Jason Rogers, Michael Crawford, Rangi from home. We actually had Tony, Jason and Rangi with us yesterday morning. They're part of our commercial board. So yes, there's the housing strategy, but our greatest focus at the moment with our commercial board.
Any time frames for this? 10 years, 20 years?
Not at the moment, I can't give you a time.
So we can expect for the next 20 years a load of fireworks?
No.
For $500,000.
I get them weak.
So you get real with me, no mind about the bullshit. Get real with me that we've established a housing committee and they'll work their way for the next 3 years or 5 years or 20 years. Maybe I'll be on my second term.
There's a housing strategy which
what's the housing strategy
about? So that's the one. This is the one that Namu's just been talking about, where there's a collective who are actually coming together to look at housing right, because we've got a shortage across Wainua. And it's looking about all of those, including kaumātua, but it's just early for that. We're actually focused on the horticulture side. So it's been known for eons, particularly for the last 12 to 15 years, that Wainua has something unique about its climate here. Charlie Owen and them are sort of examples of that. So we're actually investigating. We spent about a council put in, both councils and also Tātou put in to get a business case done. It was done by Gibbelin Group, by Gus Charteris, and that was looking at how can we set something up across the whole horticultural area that makes better use of the land that we've got, that starts to get cows and things off the land, and looking at horticulture development and developing the markets, moving to the extended packhouse operations here. So trying to change some big economic levers for Wainua. So that's part of what we're looking at the moment. And we've got some PGF funding that's been made available for us for that as part of a staged and incremental approach. So the horticulture is where we're currently focused, but housing is next in line. So that's where. Is there another slide?
So, Peri, with the Hort strap, have you talked to Charlie and Paddy?
Yeah.
And
there have been quite a few discussions with Charlie and Paddy. Yeah, so that's all part of that. So there's been a very in-depth one done to the point of putting the business case up, which secured funding. And
they're going to be part of it?
I think Charlie's expressed an interest in their packhouse concept later on. So it's really about getting him his historical information.
Yeah.
So there's a good case. I can send it out. It's about 700 pages if you want to read it. So the next one here. So We've had Lewis Rātapu appointed. He was prior a general manager at Heretonga Tai Whenua. Very, very, very good young man. And he's been operating there since earlier this year. We've just had Melissa Kaimona has been taken on as our senior office manager. And we've got Sharon Wade, who now provides our secretariat services.
Gee, that's a lot of money.
The office down at Marine Parade's been refurbished. It's been IT enabled, just like we are here.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and those are the DSP processes that we're working through there. Is there another one? We've got some sort of like social credits, you might say, with LINS as a result of Mangapui. It's been the one that's led the DSP processes. So we're banking those because we might need them later when they start playing hardball about time frames. And those are 5 of the ones that are advancing as DSPs simultaneously at the moment. Nuhaka Health Clinic, Nuhaka Manual Block, YMCA grounds down Opotama, and also the school. And you might have received via our trust a report from Lewis, which provided the Wairau recovery plan and all the work. And just to acknowledge what everyone was saying earlier on, and what was illustrative in terms of young Trevor's video clip, is because another hat that I wear back in Napier at Hawke's Bay Regional Council is I'm one of the GEC, the one that sits at the top of the civil defence ladder, so I'm part of that as well, and a lot of really good acclamation for the Tihei Modi Order Centre and everything that happened, particularly around here. Wairoa was one of the first ones, thank you Nigel, to actually get the whole process, welfare process and Namu up and running back here in Wairoa. So it was a bit of it was right out there. Any more, Bob? So we were similar to what we're advancing here at the Trust at Whakaki Nui Arua, is that we have those Pau, Mana Māori, Taiao, Tangata Pātaka, myself and Kiriama Graham Sykes. We're leading the Mana Māori, very much focused around reo, around tikanga as part of what we're doing, and there are other directors who are part of the others. And it's as it is up there. Draft Annual Plan 2020-21 is what we're going through at the moment. Reconvene Kaumātua Council. And yes, they had their 2 meetings, and they suggested that we actually change our vision statement, and so that was taken immediately on board yesterday. So advice is actually good. The housing strategy, CRM stands for a customer relationship management system database, and HORT strategy, which I've talked about, and our strategic comms promoted through one of the put up the top here. Any questions?
Good.
Can you tell me where Tātou are at with their SIRS document?
So SIRS, it's part of our settlement. It stands for Social Economic Revitalisation Strategy. Some of you might have been at the Hui Whakaki last year, I think, where one of those was the Ministry for the Environment. We had Vicky Robertson, the CEO, and her team up there to sign a relationship management document, how they would work with us, what our expectations of each other. We haven't signed any others up until, we've got a draft with the Ministry of Education, but there's actually a whole lot of active stuff that's going on. And my brother is one of those who contributes so many hours a week from the ministry, they pay him, and he does some work directly with Tātou with the Wairoa around Kāhui Ako. And one strategy in there is about how do you capture our own pūrākau, our own stories from home, so that they become part of the curriculum of our own children in their schools. So we're not hearing about everyone else's pūrākau, they're hearing about our ones from home. And so that's one of the strategies that's running through that SIRS. The SIRS that we haven't yet signed up with is one with MSD, and there's one other. Regrettably, we didn't sign up every organisation that we might need as a government agency, but we've got the ones, and we can approach the other ones voluntarily.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It's sad that we never got
But
a lot
we
more
can make direct
government
approaches to them.
departments.
In terms of the Mātangiro board in town, and it's a partnership with DOC, I think, and Wara District Council, and have you fellows developed some kind of policy or in the...
It's the Mātangiro Reserves Board.
Yeah.
It's just between ourselves and Wairoa District Council,
Yeah.
not with DOC. There was a part that DOC were managing, which is now part of that. Mātangiro strips are actually quite definitive strips that run either side, from Rangiho, all the way down to just past the Fraser Town, the ferry. Yeah, the ferry.
It was just that in the Kaumātua I identified a rookery that's in that Mātangiro board responsibility. But it brings up the thought about what are we doing about rookery, what are we doing about the native bird population, and I mean it brings up all sorts of things. I felt that maybe Mātangiro board, when it gets a working relationship going, that those issues should be put together, because Kihitu is the only rookery for seagulls from Hawke's Bay right through to Gisborne. So it's become important, it has to have its own kaupapa, well, in my opinion.
So
He's talking about that other board, and not the Mātangiro Reserves board is for those specific 5 reserves.
Yeah.
And then later on, some other reserves we're going to be put
this
in.
rookery is in that Mātangiro board.
Is it? Is it? Oh, yeah. What's that other board that's not getting...
Lagoon.
What is that other one that is not yet set up? What's that board? What's that other board? With the HBRC, WDC and Tato Tato.
It's tripartite.
Tripartite, that's it.
So let me finish off the Mātangiro one. So it's been running for a year. It's actually got a signed constitution around it. The 3 directors that went on there initially was myself, Phil Beattie and Oha Manuel. So we're on there initially, but it was on the agreement that within 12 months we would run a recruitment process, an appointment selection process, to bring 3 new people on board. So we're just going through that now in terms of writing up the job descriptions and advertising and putting it out there.
Good.
The tripartite agreement is another one within our thing. That's HBRC, Wairoa District Council, and Tato Tato to Wairoa. That one there hasn't actually had a lot of bite in terms of actual operational things. There are certain things that we're doing which could be part of that, but they weren't deliberately brought out in the tripartite agreement. So it's something that sits in reserve, probably latent at the moment. Kia ora, any part of it?
Just that thing. Well, Uncle Walter, do you want to add any more to your kōrero? Anything else? You've got a space to do that?
I'm not bloody shy. Look, Kaumātua Committee, like I said before, we've met twice. We've met twice and tried to establish the Kaunihera Kaumātua and have its own position in the structure. And it may be not included in the proposed structure anyway, but we felt that the Kaumātua, 7 of us who have been elected, that we needed our own chairman, we needed our own deputy chair, we need to have our own identity, and not to be just a tono for Tato Tato. And so as Kaumātua, we felt that this needed to be transferred to Tato Tato to see what they think about it. And also we felt that we didn't want to be just told to meet at this clinical office they call Tato Tato office. And that we as the Kaumātua should have the ability to go to Marae and talk to the people at the coalface to say, how o koutou whakaaro, awanga wanga raru pēr. And that was accepted by our grouping. And the general manager was present at our meeting, and Melissa was taking the minutes, which I see is not being taken here. So all I'm saying is wah wah wah, and it's never recorded.
It's recording.
So maybe there needs to be recorded.
Yep, it's been
Okay.
recorded.
And then for me, we go forward, because the discussion is about, is kaumātua the relevant word for pakeke? So that discussion is on, but we have to talk to the Kāhui to get their corded or their thoughts about should it be pakeke or should it be kaumātua, but that's another discussion. But until we form our committee, we haven't got that ability. And then they came to the remuneration part of it. We're proposing that Taro pays the Kāhui kaumātua. They have yet to agree to this. But it's a proposal, and so that takes it away from our budget. And once that is sort of all settled, then we can maybe get together as a Kāhui, as a kaunihera, and then get on with some business, because we're talking about tikanga. That's what you in the rules and regulations, that the Kāhui kaumātua would be looking and discussing matters of tikanga. Well, that covers a whole array of stuff. So tikanga is certainly high on the thing. But we are coming together because we've never done this before either. We just come together and discuss these. So we've had 2 meetings up to now. The general manager is reporting it. So for me, we're making good progress. I mean, this is only in a month. We were elected last November, but this is the first time we've been called together. So I feel, the Kāhui o kaumātua and kaunihera, we're hoping to put together a structure that will serve into the future. So when all of you are kaumātua, well, who says you're not anyway?
Question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair.
Yes,
Walter, can I suggest that that Kāhui kaumātua group, kaunihera, use the secretary at the office? Because as far as I'm concerned, tātou, in my view, the admin is top heavy. So, can I suggest?
We want to bring it back to the Marae.
Hui, no, you wanted a deputy chair and you wanted a secretary, someone to write your fellows stuff that you talk about, to use tātou, because tātou's got to be running yous, paying yous?
Resourcing.
Resourcing.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word running. But I think that's something that we're trying to look at, because that early structure was what we would describe as the group of tātou. Whether we talk about the commercial board, the charities part, we're looking at it as a group and saying what are the economies of scale, particularly around administration costs. So it's certainly there, and we would suggest that is the one that's used rather than find another one. So we're up for that. What we're really waiting for is to hear back from our pakeke, our kaumātua. And what would be good alongside that, aside from the terms of reference, is actually a program of work, the things that are high in their aspiration. One of them is getting around on the marae. And so if we had that program of work, then we can budget against that, put our secretariat services against that, and know whether we've got enough or not enough.
I think too, you saying that it's for us as a Kāhui to be able to make sure that Uncle is with information to take along to these huis and work alongside that, so we're actually getting double the whammy, really.
And that's why he's with yous now.
Well,
So
I think too, we also had to wait to see where this was going, as it was a tātou space, just where that position was going to head to, what the expectations from the Kāhui, from the trustees. So just with Uncle today telling us, then that's pretty much clear on where we need to lead to going forward.
And just another discussion that we had was the moia and vision of Taro. It's got a whole lot of series of I think they hired these consultants at $300 an hour to put forward a whole paragraph of vision. And yet we started in the negotiations with the Crown And the vision of our Kāhui was going to be mana motuhake. This is tikanga. We need to discuss that. And the way forward to mana motuhake is tino rango tiratanga. So you've given us a task to discuss matters of tikanga. And your Kāhui is already saying that the vision you have for Taro Taro is all Pākehā. So we need to get some tikanga back in it. Kia ora tātou.
That's why
There's no to end on.
I don't think it requires a response. Just a pair of ears.
Really good note to end on.
So we just wanted to give you sort of an update on where we've been going in these last 10 months around working on our posts. So we're just going to really summarise it up.
Yeah. Please do.
So in regards to title, we've sort of put that as a second phase. That's only because what we've been trying to work on was our first, the Manamoto Hake space and the tangata space around with each po. So as I said in my report, we all took a po on ourselves, and from that, my one was based around the growing the assets, around funding research, and so that's in the Manamoto Hake space, and that was more so around where can we, in regards to Uncle saying around the kōrero about what are you doing for, is there any businesses in mind, is there any stuff that you have in place. That is the space that we're in at the moment, is looking at opportunities, options. We did put towards a tender for Opoho, is it? Just to have a look at in regards to an opportunity, but that's where the space is really. It's about what we can do now in regards to where we can put our money, grow our assets. Our assets is only our monetary at the moment, so there's more work to be done in that space.
So do you have some information for us for all these posts? Where are you up to with all of this stuff?
Yeah, that's where we would definitely, we don't have any stuff for you now.
No.
Just individually can discuss where we are in each po.
Okay.
And we've been working on the key policies and processes taking a chunk space. That's in Joanna's area, just getting the post. I think we've got like a 100 page policy on everything we do.
That's
so when
good.
we do move out, we're able to, we got the functions to be able to do so, and to do so with some poku and stuff. So anyone else?
Just on the Manamoto Hake side, in terms of growing our asset base, this is where we have been looking at options as to what best to do with our money. Some of that has involved discussions with Tato around, they've got a commercial arm to them, so whether we can leverage that to invest some of our money in. We've also spoken to a couple of organisations who are within the not-for-profit area who invest money for not-for-profits. So we'll be bringing you back some information on that at year end, but that's just what we've been doing in terms of funding research.
Perhaps just through the chair to add to that part, and it's just a wee bit about the commercial board. So we've got 5 directors in there who have great expertise in this whole area, and they're receiving sort of from all over the place, all of these proposals for investment. And there's some exciting ones that are coming up that we would certainly come back to Kāhui to see, of the Kāhui who are interested in investing in these. They would have already gone through the due diligence, so there's a level of confidence, you might call, in terms of those. So certainly open.
Yeah.
What we do know is that there's limited benefit to us having our money in the bank on term deposit at the moment because the rates are so low, and they may even go into negative territory sometime down the track. So
Is there a process by which, when you are doing the assessment of looking at things to invest in, whereby you come back to the Kāhui with some sort of business proposal so that we actually get to vote on what it is we want to invest in?
Yeah, and that's what that's, so, you know, I think Naomi mentioned, we're not investment people. What our approach has been to look at people who do that, like the commercial arm, like the not-for-profits that we're talking to. You know, that's what their job is to invest money and get a better return from out of it. We specifically haven't looked at any options ourselves on, you know, should we be buying houses or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because to us that's not our expertise.
Well, the thing that I was, because I know we're talking about that we may, as a Kāhui, invest in things, so I would assume that there would be some type of proposal, and that before the Kāhui says we'll take some of our $500,000 and put it into that, do we have a process whereby before that you guys don't make the decision to invest in that asset that the Kāhui does? Do we have that in place? Is that something you're considering?
That's definitely something we're considering and putting in place. We have to. It is about bringing it back to our whānau but it's making sure we've got everything, all our ducks in a row to bring back to make that decision making.
Yeah, because I think that has to be clear, because it's not clear.
So every single pro that we have, it is about making sure that it comes back to the whānau to ensure that we're going on the right path. So a process and a policy and a perspective surround everything is where we've been working to.
Yeah, consultation. Yeah, is actually what I'm alluding to, is that because we don't want to put you at risk and put us at risk, because there's a lot of things to consider with that, and I'd hate to think that after all the time that we've invested in you, you've invested in us, that some simple stupid thing like process gets in the way of us going forward.
I think we also look at, well, we also looking on the funding side as well. You know, what funding opportunities are there out there to do ABC? That's yes.
I just have a question. So as part of that 100-page policy document that you've actually formulated, within your actual financial policy there would actually be financial delegations on this?
Yep.
And requirements for trustees?
Yep.
DFAs, Delegated Financial Authority.
Yeah, we've done all that. But that's, yes.
But your policies are only your guidelines, aren't they? You're still, your trustee is what says that if it's up to a huge value, you'd have to come back. So,
that's right.
So you know, you could actually make the decision if it was something lesser than that.
So that's the trustee provides us with limits of what we can do and what we can't do. But what we're trying to do within that policy, our policies and procedure, is to put more definition around that. Like, and you know, to Green's point, do we bring our investment, our options to you before we make that decision? And when we're saying that, yes, we are, and we'll be doing that in November.
And most would.
Yeah.
Cool. So the tangata po is mine, and top of that is Marae restoration. So I'm actively involved with Whakiki Marae and trying to move forward our Marae restoration program. One of the things we did was write out to the Marae, just seeking their input as to you know, what support are they looking for? What are their needs and aspirations? So two of the Marae have responded back to us around, you know, what sort of support we can give them. We're just waiting for the third Marae to respond before, you know, we make some decisioning around that. But certainly, you know, Whakiki and Iwitea, you know, do want to place some focus on Marae development. And just with the current work that I'm doing, you know, I've spoken with TPK and DIA in terms of progressing the Marae development plans. Hapu mātauranga, so this is, Uncle mentioned it before, you know, do we have the means to capture and record and share information that we have, whether that be whakapapa or hitiri or paki waitara or whatever. For this po here, I'm actually working with Lewis for Tātou, in terms of driving a common solution across that for Kāhui, not just our own Kāhui, but for all Kāhui. So that's pretty much around looking at what type of pātaka do we have or repository do we have for that information, how do we get stuff in there, and you know, how do we make that available to our people as well. So I'd say that's, you know, Lewis and I have a couple of discussions. What I know is that despite what some of us say about Tātou resourcing, there is some resourcing that they do need to do in a couple of areas. It's around moving stuff like this. I know our registration and around our member relationship management. That's something else that I'm talking to Lewis in, but it's something that we're looking for a direction or to work with Tātou about providing common solutions that are not only good for us, but they're good for other Kāhui, and they're not trying to do reinvent the wheel. So those are a couple of things that when we did have the collective Kāhui, collective hui, those were the types of things when we were talking around what are we trying to achieve, that popped up as having, we have these things in common, and we should be going back to Tātou to say, we all have this need, why can't we work with you to get that delivered across all Kāhui, not just one. Papakāinga, I haven't done too much work on that. I'd take note of, we've had the discussion around the housing strategy that's coming up next month, that hui, so I'll be going along there to look into just to take our points into that around Papakāinga and what our needs may be. The whole order, we've got nothing particular planned in that space. There are a whole lot of government agencies, services out there who are providing it. What we think we should be doing in that space is you know, supporting our people to get those services rather than trying to provide the services themselves. But I can't say I'm doing anything active in that area at the moment. So those top two around Marae restoration and Hapu mātauranga are what the focuses are for us.
Can I ask a question about the Marae restoration?
Yep.
I remember at the AGM we passed a motion that the trustees would go back to the respective marae and discuss that, I think it was $50,000 deposit. And in that part of that discussion, and I don't think I made it clear, I realised later that I didn't make it clear about IRD's stand on it and why I got them to, the history behind me getting a technical ruling from them. Now the reason why I got a technical ruling from them, and you may not know that, is in the 1990s, one of the large companies took IRD to High Court. Because IRD would make a technical ruling and then next week Jim Bob over here would go, no, you were wrong, we'll change the technical ruling. And what would happen was it invariably meant that anyone could come along and IRD and just change a ruling. So this organisation took IRD to the High Court and said, if you say that everyone has to wear purple socks in order to have only pay taxes of 13%, then you've got to stick to it irrespective of it being legislation saying it's 25 because you've made a technical ruling. And I don't think I explained to you guys why I got the technical ruling, because of that High Court ruling. And what happened as a result of that High Court ruling, it then became policy for all government departments, because at the High Court the judge was saying, I'm a taxpayer too. And that's actually what he said. I'm a taxpayer too, and how dare you change your mind just because you feel like it. And so WINS has to abide by that, you know, all those government departments have to abide by it. And that's why I wrote to IRD and not to a lawyer and not to an accountant. Because the boss is the one that makes the rules. Now, she was quite specific about how we as a Kāhui could donate to Marae, because as Dad's point out, Marae's are not members, we are. So did you guys as trustees have a meeting where you discussed that $50,000?
Yep. We're still discussing it in terms of what that
monetary looks like.
I know with Whakakī, it's registered as a charitable organisation, and it gives it, and there's actually, IRD have a list of all marae that are charitable organisations, and there's huge benefits to that from a taxation point of view. I'm always going to talk about tax, it's my thing. And because I was part of GST, implementing GST, so I kind of have this, I know the structure. So in terms of that, and in terms of the safety nets that can be there for marae, in terms of not being lumped with a tax bill at the end, please remember the technical ruling, because it binds IRD, and because that ruling was made at the High Court and it still stands. So I just wanted to sort of, you know, add a bit more to that, because Dad keeps pointing out to me, Cream, they don't know what you know about IRD, and I've worked with them for a very, very long time, and they're a system-based organisation, and they can be dangerous, but you just got to know how to work it. And what I do is that I never ever, when I talk to someone on the 0800 number, I go, what's your name? And put notes on my file, and if I don't like what they're saying, I just go straight to head office. And I do that by writing to the minister. And what the minister does, he cannot interfere in how IRD works. What he does is he then takes it to head office. From head office, and I know what happens in head office because I used to write the ministerials, I would then take a ministerial, a letter from you, say, Bob, you've made an inquiry, this blooming lot down in Wellington have done such and such. I then have 5 working days with which to investigate it. That's why I went to head office to get the technical ruling, and that's why it's binding. So I just wanted to put some kōrero about that, about actually how powerful that technical ruling is, and also advice for other people that if you're having problems with IRD, write to the minister, because then the inquiry goes to head office, and you get the senior technical officers and the lawyers looking at it at that level, and that's where that technical ruling came from.
Yeah, and we will follow up, you know, as Whakakī Marae, we realise the benefits of being a charity.
Huge benefit.
Kāhui. So as we move on, that's from our report of our PO. We're now into general business.
Oh gosh.
Yes. Is there anything?
I want to talk to Bob just to clear it in my own mind. You were saying Marae restorations?
Yes.
Now the Marae order is available for all of that through internal affairs. I think it's the same thing.
So that's the
plus also TPK.
Yeah. So, you know, a few marae were lucky enough to, as part of some redirected funding, central government funding from out of COVID, there was a whakaora marae program that quite a few marae in this
That got on.
So we were lucky enough to put in for that, and you know.
I think I'm clear to say that our 3 marae in Te Whakakinuiaru are recipients of that in some way or another, from Te Rauhina to Whakakī. If we continue, even though we're not a marae individually, we will continue to work and find opportunities for the 3 marae. So collectively around what Bob is saying in regards to marae restoration, is if there's a possibility that our 3 marae want to look at doing something then it could be a possibility how our kāhui can support that from this point. Yeah.
That should go to tātou because there's marae in every single kāhui, and tātou aren't doing a hell of a lot around our marae. I know that insurance has been talked about for years and years and years, and everybody seems to have dropped it from their discussion. And you know, Bob, if you're talking to Lewis about those other things in your code, marae restoration and support is another one that should go there, to me.
I think from the marae order, it did go to tātou. But there again, our collective conversation within Māori organisations, it was about who best fitting at this time to pick that up.
Yeah, but they haven't done anything else.
No.
You know,
no,
and they're one of our biggest organisations here now. Tātou.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, every kāhui has the need.
Tātou would approach it in the same way as what Namu was just saying. And that where there's benefit for all, or where there's, you know, there are some gains to be made right across all kāhui. But what we initially do at Tātou when these come in is we send them straight through to the kāhui. And you've heard the approach that's going to be taken here. Because the term used earlier on, mana motuhake, has some say in this. It's not for Tātou to direct this. One is to give it to kāhui. And if they come back and collectively want something, then we'll look at how we can get some economies of scale around there, get some leverage.
Well, it was talked about at the initial 3 kāhui collective hui's marae insurance.
Yes, as being a big thing in common.
Is it at
But this goes back to the mana motuhake thing. Well, tātou are likely to say, I can hear it coming through already, you fellas got your own money now. You do what you want to do.
Yeah, but that's limited money.
I just wondered, do we have a time limit of when you guys are going to come back and tell us what your guys marae are saying about the 50 grand that we wanted to give them?
Yes, it is by AGM.
At the AGM, because it was
We're just waiting for one marae to come back.
To come back, and then you'll tell us what each marae.
And then we'll say what our recommendations are for at our AGM.
How do you overcome the possibility of a conflict of interest? Because you guys are both the chair, is it, of your marae?
That's right.
That would be a concern for you, do you think?
I'm not sure. How I handle it at my marae meeting is by, I have an agenda item because I'm our whakaki nui aroa representative. We've got an agenda item in our for our meetings where, you know, I'm giving an update on tātou. And I take direction from my trustees in terms of, you know.
Because it is something that would be concerning for you from
I
a
move
legal
the same
perspective.
way as Bob. You have to remove yourself off and just pretty much during this period of time I'm going to discuss this kaupapa because that's the head on.
Well, it's just about declaring a conflict of interest because we're conflicted no matter what. Because we're Māori, we're going to be conflicted every which way but blue. So I think it's just about declaring your conflict and getting on with the mahi.
We do need to know about that money because if we're talking about marae restoration and insurance, that was one of the driving things behind it, was that money would be of assistance for that. So, you know, I was just adding to that conversation.
Can't wait. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to stand and say thank you very much to our trustees. Even though I've been a grumpy old bagger, but it doesn't matter. You know, this meeting is to inform the people. But I'd like to thank you guys and hanging in there on our behalf, and also to our rep at Tātou. Thank you all. I mean, none of us have ever done this before, so it's going to take a while to put it together. But certainly, that's why we attend to throw the questions and maybe one or two hard ones. But kei te whai, it's not that I don't appreciate. I don't think we all appreciate what you're doing up to now, and so kia ora koutou.
Kia ora koutou. I endorse the remarks of what he said to the three stooges that are taking us forward and satisfying us back that home. But I do think that you should consideration of giving the whakeke at least a slot tātou to take their voices to the head. So me tīmatanga tātou mō tēnei karakia. Whakamutunga. I roto te matu e te tama me te weiru e tasi. Ko tae mai tu wāpā, Kāhui tonu tātou, ko mutu nāi nei, no reire aroa nui kia koe, ko homai kia mātou, ngā kupu kōrera mo te oranga ti o tēnei hui. Engari tēnei ki inoi kia koe, me whakapaini te haere rewa tātou tu, ki o tātou kāinga, ki o tātou marae, ki o tātou whahanga. Ngā me māwiwitanga i roto tēnei apore o tātou, me piki di ore kia tātou katoa, i roto te matu e te tama me te wairu tapu, āna.
To get in.